You're listening to RIA Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out RIARadio.com.
As you progress in real estate, you understand that time is your biggest asset, and trying to buy back your time is extremely important. So you have more focus to buy bigger opportunities.
This episode is brought to you by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions, we have trillions with a T to lend. 844 we close, or go online, jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
Welcome to RIA Radio, episode 195 with Jeff Hansen.
Jeff, what was it like being in high school, knowing that you were about to go into the military and during conflict time?
I was excited about it. I out of high school as a terrible student. I barely graduated, and then after that, it gave me a purpose. The structure of the military was great, and became a medic, so I learned a lot. Learned how to study, learned how to get a little bit more discipline. I was already somewhat fit, but it really helped that out a lot. And the camaraderie was really great, and just going forward and seeing a purpose in my life was really helpful.
Did you have a parent or parents in the military?
Yeah, so my dad was a Green Beret in the Army.
Oh, wow.
In Vietnam.
Okay.
I have two half brothers, so both of them, that wasn't really their calling, and it was one of those things where even when I was little, I knew that I was going to do this.
That's cool. So you didn't have your parents didn't try to talk you out of it? Was your dad supportive, or was he kind of like, "Are you sure you want to do this? It's really rough over there." Oh,
very supportive. I mean, college really wasn't for me yet, and so I did the military and did that for 8 years, and went great.
For perspective, what year was this?
It was 2004.
Oh, okay.
Or I got out of high school in 2002. I took a little bit of time, and then January of 2004, I joined the Army.
At any point to be like, hey, I'm 8 years in, maybe I'll just go for the full, was it the full 20 or 25? Were you
20?
20.
There's a quote, maybe a saying that the uniform gets heavy, and it does. Doing that job day in and day out, after a while, it just gets heavy. You just want your own freedom.
Now, you mentioned you were deployed, and you were how old were you when you got sent to Iraq?
I was 25.
25. Okay, so you had been in for 6 years?
Yeah, 5-6 years.
Okay, and describe what that was like. So you got your orders, and what was the whole process?
So we got the order to mobilize, and we took like a year to do that, and it kept on getting pulled in and pulled out. It was right around 2009. They didn't really quite know what they're going to do. They thought they were going to send us over, so finally they gave us the final order and sent us to Fort Hood. And at Fort Hood, we mobilized, did a lot of training, did about 30 days out. There's a giant mass casualty at Fort Hood during this time as well that I got to see. And that after all that happened...
Can you describe that as a reminder? Because this was on the news. It was a big deal.
Yeah. So 2019, there was a major that had... I don't know how to say it. It's maybe some sort of mental health issues, obviously. And then he went into the mobilization auditorium and just shot up everything. I think there was maybe 20 people that died.
Jeez.
And so we were getting mobilized. So we were in and out of that building for the last couple of days when that all happened. And
did you know any of the people that were killed?
Yeah, I knew a couple of them. Not like very close, but I mean, I was with them. Like I remember seeing them a lot in passing and things like that. Yeah.
So this was 2009.
Yeah, 2009.
Okay.
And then, so you were at Fort Hood, went through this horrific event with your boots on the ground there. You're getting ready to deploy to Iraq. Can we timestamp this? What was going on there then? There's been so much in the Middle East over the years. Sure. What was the setting?
So 2009, we were drawing down a little bit. So we still had a pretty large footprint in the Middle East, but they were trying to pack up some of the weapons. You've reduced troop count. And I mean, there's still, quite a few of us there. And we shipped over there in November, and we went to Kuwait for maybe 2 weeks you got to acclimate because the weather's so much different than the U.S. And then after that, went over to Iraq, spent a year there. I did a thing called QRF, it's a quick reaction force. So it's kind of like a firehouse you're going to stay in, but when there's disturbances outside the wire, you would go on. You'd have like all your gear laid out like you would as a fireman, and you'd slap it all on, and you go outside the wire and go see what's going on.
Okay, so QRF, is that similar to like your first responder when it comes to
Yes, it's very similar.
basically a conflict? And so did you go into some I guess firefights or right after to medevac people out, or how did that work?
So we had one. We had some firefights. We got a lot of pop shots at us. A lot of mortars. Nothing like majorly crazy, but we'd get that pretty regularly, where you would kind of be desensitized to it, but you were used to getting like mildly shot at by
mildly shot at. That's a good soundbite there.
Yeah. But
just kidding. Just mildly shot at.
Yeah, just like, so you would just kind of hear it, and then you'd go into Iraq, and Iraq smells, especially where we were at, smells like sulfur quite a bit because all the oil
gunpowder.
No, all the oil. That's
okay.
In the country, and then you're going to see a lot of wild dogs, and a lot of they don't have dumps like we have in the States, so you're going to see a lot of old like washers and dryers and things like that are just around.
Weird.
Yeah.
Huh. You ever seen the videos of all the tire farms out there?
Yeah. It's
for as far as the eyes can see in the middle of the desert, it's just tires, and then they burn them.
Well, I was just thinking of just think if the U.S. was like that, all the scrappers would be in would be in heaven. Right. Just drive around everywhere picking up appliances for scrap metal pricing. Yeah. So okay, so you spent time there, saw some action. You were a medic, and kind of knew that you wanted to go into the military. When did you decide, 8 years is enough? A long time before that? Or
probably at year 6 or so.
Okay.
Right when we got out, I was kind of deciding what I wanted to do, the next trajectory of my life. And just the military was a great chapter that I loved, and I always cherished it, but I'm glad it's closed.
Yeah. Now, you came back stateside. What was that like? We've talked to a few different ex-military folks and current military folks that have been deployed, and there's varying issues, and people react differently when they are reintroduced back into kind of like quote unquote normal society here in the U.S. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so it's going to be a little touchy the first couple of months. You're going to hear a motorcycle rev up too loud, or an exhaust that's going to pop. You're going to see a can in the street, and you're instinctively thinking that's an IED. And that doesn't go away for a little while. So your first couple of months are a lot more challenging. And then as you go further, like it kind of wears off.
Do they give you any therapy or tools or like counseling on what it's like to be kind of reintroduced back into society?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as you're post mobilization, you're going to go back to another fort. I went back to Fort Hood, which is a little strange because it was like a year on that Moscow. So it was a bunch of memorial and things like that. But then you're going to get some counseling and things like that. Yeah. You're going to ask all those questions.
Okay. So what happened when you got back? What was you land, you get reacclimated, you are now looking to do what at that point?
So I worked for the Army for another 2 years. And then after the Army, I got out and started bartending.
What year did you get out?
2012.
2012. Okay.
Yeah, so started bartending 2012, and then I started working in hotels. I was a non-commissioned officer in the Army, so I already had a decent amount of leadership under me. So I got promoted pretty quickly within working in hotels, and then
so you're in the food and beverage portion of it. Yep,
correct. So I started off as a supervisor, became a banquet manager and a restaurant manager, and then I eventually became a food and beverage director.
You were still active military when I first met you in 2010. Then
I was working at the National Guard. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of interesting.
Okay, so food and bev manager in hospitality. Where does real estate come into play here?
So I went from the hotels and I started working at the VA, and then I worked at the VA for a while, for about 7 years. And during that time, my father passed. And my dad was always a handyman. And so he had all these old tools and everything like that. So when he passed, he was a very important person, probably the most impactful person in my life. And so I felt closer to him while I was grieving, and I'd be like painting my house or doing whatever. And so I took those tools, and it was a way for me to grieve as I started fixing up my personal house. And then I bought a rental property. I had to move out of my house because my mom, she has epilepsy. So I moved in with her for a while, and I had a little bit extra income. And then I rented out the house that I was living in to a buddy of mine. Did all the wrong things as a landlord, renting out to your buddies, just doing, not making sure that they have a correct amount of income, all those things that I'm sure you guys.
What were the biggest lessons you learned in that?
Um,
I'm sure there's some good ones.
Don't rent to your buddies.
Don't rent to your buddies.
Owen says that stuff all the time.
Yeah, don't rent to your buddies. Don't rent to your buddies, and then I don't have a drug background, so I didn't understand what crack was.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You know? So just that was crack and alcohol, right?
I mean, I've experienced that with my little amount of short or long-term rentals. I definitely dealt with somebody who was dealing with meth, and
Oh yeah.
and I remember showing up and then seeing needle holes all over their ankles, and I'm like, you mean they pay the bills all the time, but what do you do?
High functioning meth addict.
It really was like own their own business.
Absolutely.
You know, completely strung out all the time. And the crazy thing is, I think they're all freaked out all the time, and then they end up painting like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was he a painter?
No, I'm not gonna say what they were doing, but they went and like painted my hallways that weren't unpainted, and then made the steps look really nice.
Oh yeah.
And then did work on the outside. I'm like, I can't. And I called them out on it too. I remember I'm like, you need to make some better life choices.
Yeah.
And I just was really blunt with it. But in the same aspect, I didn't have a reason to evict them.
Right.
Yeah, you're doing bad things, but nothing legally that I can get rid of you for. Okay, so run it out to a buddy.
Understood that some people have trouble paying their bills, and because of they have other vices that make it so they don't have any money. So it just had to learn about that. Had to learn about one of my good friends, and then so as I progressed, I moved in with my mom, and then I bought a duplex up of 25th and Bancroft.
Before we kind of continue down this path,
Sure.
Did you just think, oh, you know, I have an extra house, or I'm just going to rent out my old house? Did you know what you were? I mean, you mentioned you didn't really know what you were doing, but had you studied anything about real estate investing up to this point?
So I drove around. So when I was working in the VA, they'd send me to a lot of different locations to help out for whatever reason. And so I would listen to audiobooks, and then I listened to the Burr book
By David Green.
by David Green.
Yep.
So I listened to that.
Not
one.
David Dodge's bird book.
No,
Okay.
not David Goggins.
Okay.
But
There's a couple bird books out there. I just wanted to clarify.
So listen to the Burr book, and then I listened to a couple more, and then I listened to like Robert Kiyosaki's. Just kind of really learning a lot more about real estate and just finances itself. I was raised poor, so my dad was a handyman. My mom was a cleaning lady, so I didn't really have any background in finance or anything like that. So I just read a bunch of books, listened to a bunch of podcasts, listened to your guys' podcast.
Hey.
And, it just
5-star review would be appreciated. But
So, as I was progressing, then I had a little bit of extra cash, and I bought a duplex down on South Omaha, 25th and Bancroft, and it was bought for $28,000.
Whoa. And this is
This is in 2019.
2019. Okay.
So they wanted $50,000 for it, and
Was it condemned?
No, so it wasn't condemned. It was definitely a fixer-upper. The lady that lived upstairs was older, and she might have had some mental issues. And then she had he's probably autistic's grandson that lived with him as well. And then when I went in there was pests, quite a bit of pests. So I did a little bit of updating to it and got someone to spray all the roaches and make sure all the mice were gone, and it worked out great. And I bought my next one a couple months later. And
Did you do all the work yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, so you use your dad's tools.
Yep. Did use my dad's tools and use YouTube, and that figured out how to do it all.
What do we call that? 6-foot construction?
Yeah, 6 feet construction. Yeah, Drew's Aruba.
Yeah. So then used YouTube, and then I had a couple of buddies that would help me out.
What was your quality of work at that time?
It wasn't great. It was, it was.
Have you had to redo a lot of that? Or?
Not that one. That one burned down last February. But
I thought only Owen's place is burned down.
Her flood.
Yeah. So that one burned down last February, and it was, it was great. 10x'd it. So wonderful.
Nobody got injured.
Great. #, nobody died.
No one died. Everyone was.
What happened with it?
Have you ever heard when people say, "Hey, don't put an extension cord on an extension cord,"
like our podcast studio,
right?
Here.
So there's actually reasons, because if you have old wiring and extension cords on extension cords, houses can burn down.
I've actually never heard that. So, because they sell extension cords that are 200 feet long. So
yeah, but when you put a power strip on a power strip, it is
power strip on a power strip.
Yeah,
okay.
So that's what I meant. So power strip on a power strip, and then old wiring and time. I got a call that day, and my buddy was like, "Hey, I think the house is burning down." I said, "Oh, really? All right, whatever." And he's like, "No, you should come down here right now." And then it was completely in flames.
Wow.
So
You're a lot more calm than I am. Like,
yeah.
usually Fridays while I'm recording, all kinds of bad stuff is happening, and just like unbeknownst to me. And then I'm like, "Oh my God, I gotta go." I freak out. I've had Molotov cocktails and floods and all kinds of sewer line breaks. But yeah, I gotta say your demeanor, I don't know if it has anything to do with your military background, but you are much calmer.
Always when we're on the podcast, this happens.
Always.
Yeah. I immediately check my insurance, make sure it's updated.
I have a mix of excitement and anxiety every time we're going to have a podcast recording on Fridays, because generally I love podcast recordings, but something bad is typically happening in the background. So hopefully not today. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Knock on faux wood.
Knock on faux wood.
Particle board.
I was actually just talking to an electrician the other day because we're looking at a property, and he told me, he goes, the knob and tube wiring is ingenious.
That's what it was.
And he goes, in his opinion, knob and tube wire is better wiring than current wiring. And I said, why? He goes, well, he said the current Romax wire, they're tacking it in to the 2x4s. He goes, but with knob and tube, they're individually, wired. There's no metal clamping them down, and it separates everything, and it has less chance of catching fire. And this is a master electrician. He
probably knows. Yeah.
He goes, it's actually an ingenious way they did it, and it was actually better, in his opinion, the way it was done before. But, of course, if you grabbed it or something like that was a different situation. But he said it was, building codes wise, in his opinion, it was a safer wire.
Okay.
Bring back knob and tube. Bring back knob and tube. No, don't. Just kidding. It always makes me wonder what we're using right now in construction materials that 20 years from now is people are going to be like, "Oh my God, you're using that?
Right.
That causes cancer and lung disease and all the stuff." Because asbestos was awesome back in the day. It was great insulator, did all fire retardant, all the stuff. And now it's mesothelioma and all you see all these lawsuit deals on TV.
But think how rich the insurance companies would be if they still allowed it, because those roofs, there's still those roofs out there, and they've survived 50 years.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's like indestructible.
And the
siding,
is still out there. It's underneath all that vinyl siding you've replaced 6 times.
I got plenty of houses with asbestos siding.
That stuff lasts it's like eternal.
I mean, honestly, if they would have just stuck with it.
Well, the thing is, if they could have just taken it and somehow figured out how to keep the
coating on
the fibrous materials from getting in the air and getting into people's lungs. That's the whole thing.
You wouldn't be replacing any roofs. Plus, it looked nicer.
There is a coating that you put on asbestos that makes it so when you go over it, you don't get messed up by it.
Okay, there we go.
I think they should just bring asbestos roofs back and then
bring it back
and paint them.
Okay, so let's talk duplex. You bought that for the purpose of investing only. Now, I'm reading between the lines here. You said you didn't come from wealthy family.
Nope.
You went into the military. Sounds like you had a pretty decent income. I would assume you got a pension or what is the?
Once you get out,
you're done.
Good luck to you.
Okay, so you did kind of the food and beverage route, went to hospitality, and then started reading, educating yourself, bought a couple properties. How did you finance or how did you pay for the $20,000? I would assume it needed a lot of work.
Yeah,
at that price.
Amount of work.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it was fully rented, so I had a tenant in the basement and a tenant upstairs, and
It was when you bought it.
Yeah. So
it was $20,000, and you bought
28,000.
20. Oh, sorry, 28.
You're good. Yeah, so
28K, and it was fully rented.
Yeah. So I mean, don't get me wrong. The rents were, I think, $295, $305.
I would still take that.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, cash flow's like a monster.
Yeah, no,
that's like a 2% return on your money.
Yeah. So yeah, that was one of those things where it made it cash flow. It cash flowed decent.
Okay, so you bought something with, we call it legacy tenants or there was
5 years each person.
Oh wow. Yep. All right. So I would assume a ton of deferred maintenance.
Yep.
What did you do with those tenants? Did you leave them in there for a while?
Yeah, they lived there for their whole lives. I just left them there.
You're like, keep on trucking?
So
send me rent checks?
Yeah, so I mean,
Did you raise the rent though?
Slightly. It's an older lady and a guy.
Did you redo the place?
Absolutely. Well, no. I cleaned it up. I fixed all the water issues because there was leaking water inside the house.
I mean, at 28,000, the number still makes sense. Even if you're putting 20 grand into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I fixed all of the wiring issues. I fixed all of the water issues. So there wasn't. I just made it.
You made it safer.
I made it safer, and then I just made it so there's no roaches, there's no mice in there, and just so they had a pride of rentership.
Sure. Yeah.
How do you find it?
MLS.
It was on the MLS
It
for
was
that
on the
month.
MLS, yeah.
For 50K, on 25th and Bancroft.
Yep.
Wow, I missed that one.
So right by that Stoyson.
You missed that one.
I-
This is in your hood,
I
man.
got a 5 unit right across the
I
street
know
from
you
there.
do. Yep.
Yeah, you want to buy a 5 unit?
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, 28 grand. He'll buy it.
Go to your team right now.
How did you pay for it?
Just cash.
Okay, how did you have the cash? If you don't mind me asking.
Oh, you're fine. I saved up, and I saved up some, and then I was like, "Hey, Mom,
Okay.
you care if I borrow a little bit of money?" And she said, "Okay, Jeff."
Okay, this is great. Yeah.
You
So
know.
you were to help taking care of your mom. She had epilepsy. You moved in and worked out basically a private money situation
Yeah,
with a family member,
Exactly.
and combined that with some savings. Bought it, did a little work to it. It was cash flowing like crazy at
Did well.
$295 and
Yeah.
$3 whatever. And all right, so that's pretty cool.
Did you do a
Man, I mean, people don't like, I've been in this a long time. I mean, those are not very common to find, especially on the MLS.
Did you burn it out, or you just held it for
Yeah. No, I burned it.
You refinanced it?
No, I didn't. Never refinance
Yeah.
it. It had the fire.
Yeah.
So, but
That was significantly later, right?
yeah. So, but I mean, once the tenants were there for a while, and I upped the rent slightly because I needed to make some money on it.
And you had to pay back your debt.
Yeah, I
on
had,
it,
to, had to do all that. So I upped the rent slightly. I mean, it was already cash flowing. So then I just went for the next thing, and
Okay.
I bought a house off of in Benson.
Can I ask what you got paid on that after the fire?
That's what I was going to ask. Like, what was the insurance claim
You said you 10X'd
situation?
it.
I didn't quite 10x it. I'm more like 7 to probably like 8x it.
Okay, what's that number? Can you say?
It was 237, I believe.
So your mom got a good return on her money.
She got that full clip back for sure.
And some?
And some. Oh yeah.
So this is more like a fire than a burr, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
So that's one way to get your money out of a property.
There's your book.
Hey, interest rates go up. I mean, look in the fire
That was-
method.
Yeah, my agent actually always said that. She's like, "You should just burn it down." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to burn it down. I did not burn it down. I didn't. Burn
You want to
it
give that
down."
agent a shout out?
Yeah, I do not. She would not. She would not care for that.
Here's how they go. Hey, Jeff, if you're going to write a book, what would it be titled and what topic would it cover? It's going to be called The Fire Method.
Well, yeah, but you know, the fire method is what financial independence. What's the acronym? There's a whole movement about the fire. This is a little bit of a different twist on that. I like it.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so duplex. Let's move on to more progress here.
Sure.
What was
So,
next?
Bought my next one in October. Then I had a little bit of equity from.
And you were still working, right?
Yeah, I was still working full time at
Okay.
the VA. So bought my next one in October. Once again, the market was just dead at this point. So the rates hadn't dropped yet from all the things that they were about to do in 2019.
2019 was a little scary. You're like, what is about to happen? Like, I thought the economy was about to drop in 2020.
Because of the pandemic.
I mean, before the pandemic. I mean, you felt like you're on that cusp of something big happening. I think we all were. Didn't you start feeling that at that time?
Well, when you were talking about this, I was thinking back to when I left my job in 2017. I remember, and I said this a lot. It was mostly to myself, but I felt like we were in the 7th inning of the market cycle with real estate because it was just starting in 2017 where that you were seeing a lot of like highest and best and, you know, multiple offer situations and people making ridiculous offers on places. And I was like, I had never seen that up until that point because, you know, I started in 2005 and we went through the, you know, great financial crisis and all that, came back and there was an upswing. But I was like, this doesn't feel sustainable to me. But I remember thinking, you know what? Worst case scenario, I'll do this for a couple of years. And if disaster happens, if there's a black swan event like a pandemic, but in my head, I was like, I'm going to give this 2 years and I'm going to buy everything I possibly can and make margin on it. That was my thought at the time because it did feel like it was getting toppy, the market, you know, but I still felt like there was room to run. But 2019, I think I was so just like heads down, acquisitions and so forth. I don't know that I was panicking necessarily at the time. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
So yeah, I bought another one in October. Bought a triplex that was.
And this is what year?
This is 2000. Triplex was in December of 19.
December 19th. Okay.
So pretty aggressive about it.
Yeah.
And then there was a halfway house. The agent had it listed as a single family, but it was definitely a triplex.
Okay, so for people who don't know what halfway house is, can you explain that real quick?
Sure. So halfway house is people that are needing to get back on their feet. They might be suffering from drugs and alcohol. So I had bought it from a guy that had it previous as a halfway house. And then I was like, oh, this is great. Essentially, it's like an Airbnb because it's fully furnished housing. It was one of those things where I thought about it, but then I just kept on moving because I was like, all right, maybe a halfway house again, maybe whatever.
Did you call your original tenant, your buddy that was the crackhead, and say, "Hey, good news! I'm starting a new real estate asset class here.
So
you might want to move back in.
So
we'll take you."
in my personal life, I don't know a lot about hard drugs or anything like that. So I didn't understand all of those things quite yet. I didn't understand the signs as you both are landlords. You both can see the signs probably now, but I was pretty green to it all. So I didn't see it yet. So I rented out my personal house at that point, moved back in with my mom. And then I bought a triplex, and then he went through a divorce. And so he moved in one of the units. I had a guy that was going to just work for me, and he's just going to work off rent. Terrible idea. You'll have a whole bunch of issues. Just learned a lot more about people that, not typical people I'm around a lot. So I learned a little bit more about hard drugs during that time. Just renting out to all the people you shouldn't rent out to.
So is that your focus at this point? Is the sober living homes, halfway homes, things like that?
No, my focus at this point is acquiring as many houses as I can.
Got it.
I'm just focused on growth.
How many of those halfway houses do you have right now?
So right now, me and my business partner, we have 10 halfway houses.
Is this your brother or somebody else?
No, this is someone else.
Okay.
So that's my business partner, Jake. He owns a different approach. So it's all self-paying halfway houses. And then, we were friends since high school, and he had some legal issues, and then he got into halfway houses. And then at that time, I was growing, and I was just trying to buy as much as I could. I bought a house every 3 months, probably for 4 years. And then as I was growing, I was learning about cash flow. And then some of them were decently nice areas. So I got into Airbnb and like traveling nurses, because Omaha is a great place for traveling nurses, and traveling construction workers is a huge one as well.
But the nurses aren't as common now.
Not now, but during COVID in 2020 or so.
But the construction workers and the electricians are rampant right now.
Yeah. So I did that, and I built them all up. But some of my lower performing Airbnbs, I was like, well, I'm not really making that much money on these guys. What should I do? And I talked to my business partner, Jake. At the time, he was just a buddy of mine. We went out to Tracks. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. Wonderful wings.
Yeah, great wings.
Great wings. So we had some wings, and we talked about it. And he's like, I'll take one. And then it was fully furnished already, decorated decently nice. So then he's like, I'll take another. And then we just partnered together, and we just grew his business, and we grew our business. And now he's working with the state, and everything's doing well.
Okay, I don't want to breeze over this
Sure.
halfway house situation. If you're looking to duplicate what you are talking about here and get kind of a sober living situation, that's what essentially it is, right?
Yeah.
So what is a good prospect for property? Like, what are you looking for if you're out looking for, to buy something to do what you did?
Sure.
And how do you manage it?
So a large house with an unfinished basement, so you can add sweat equity in there.
How many bedrooms minimum?
5.
Okay, 5 beds. And is there a square footage you need to, like, where I want to go with this is what is required by potentially people that you're getting tenants from?
Sure.
And do you work with organizations? Maybe you could kind of speak to that.
Yeah, so I'm looking for always larger houses that I can add sweat equity in. I can put up walls and a bathroom and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we go for that, we'll work directly with the state, and then they'll have people that are getting out of prison that need housing.
What department specifically in the state?
Parole and drug court.
Okay.
So all these guys that have been working and some sort of work release or things like that, so they have a decent amount of money that's stacked up. They just need somewhere to go, and most places don't rent to felons.
Mm-hmm.
So we found a way. We have kind of a tiered system where they have a house that is quite a few guys in there, and it's more of like a barrack style. And then the next is maybe a nicer house.
Do you get special permits for that? Oh, you said barracks, because I think you can only have, at least in this county, you can have 3 families living there that are not related in the same property. So do you have to get a special like license or permit to get allowed, multiple people in like that?
No, we'll have parole walk through it all and make sure that they give their blessing. And once that's all good to go, we'll just go to the next thing.
Do you still have to go through the whole rental inspection program?
No.
Okay.
So once parole gives their okay, then there's kind of a specialty thing for this as well, because you're
what's the specialty thing?
So you're going to make it so there's they just like any halfway house, like if they do any drugs or alcohol or anything like that, they have and they get caught doing it. We'll give them a second chance sometimes, depending on if they're genuine about it. We ask them a question of like, did you do this? And they're like, yes or no, as opposed to a lot of other halfway houses that say you're
Oxford
gone.
There's no
no, there is not.
Yeah,
so
one and done.
Right. So, when we work directly with parole, we're understanding to a certain extent of like everyone's human. Just don't lie, just own what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can push past it or we can't. So, and Jake handles quite a bit of that side of it as well.
Now, I want to just to kind of go a layer further on this. I would assume that it's worth going this route because you're getting a better return. Is that fair to say? Like, what's the difference between why bother with this?
So it's in the middle ground. So you can get houses that maybe are in C neighborhoods as opposed to like an Airbnb where you want like a B, maybe an A neighborhood, but you could get a C neighborhood. So we have places right by the jail.
My Airbnbs are in C neighborhoods, but I try to get close to the zoo or something that's.
You have to get close to something where it makes
an
more
attraction,
sense, right? So my attraction is the jail. My attraction is bus lines, things like that. So people that are, they're just down on the luck.
Mm-hmm.
They can get where they need to go. They can get to their job and things like that. Or if they need to go see parole and things like that.
Now, Oxford, though, won't allow you to be like anywhere that's near a known drug area. So there's certain parts of the city that might have a reputation.
Right.
And matter of fact, they're like, hey, this intersection, we know that there's drug dealing going on. And so because of that, we don't want to be within so many miles of that intersection, even though it might be what I classify as a B or C neighborhood. And I had a place that was in Midtown Omaha, which is, if you're not from here, it was, it was actually a great spot, 34th right off Dodge. And I'm like, hey, Oxford, I'm going to create this building to be just for you guys. And they're like, sorry, it's too close to this,
the hood,
this particular area over here. And because of that, you don't qualify.
Yeah. So 34th and Dodge is right by the parole office.
Yeah.
So we love that area.
Yeah.
Because when these people that have to go to parole meetings and things like that and see their probation officers or parole officers, their parole loves it because they don't have to go as far and they can check on their clients.
Okay, let's do this.
Sure.
So the first halfway house that you put into service, was that considered a single family? It just had a bunch of rooms?
Yeah, it was a place in Dundee. Nice little spot.
What do you rent it out for if you had a full rent roll as a place that accepts felons and people that are kind of in between destinations?
Maybe 15 or 1600.
Okay, and that's how many people?
That'd be 4 bedrooms, 2 bath.
4. Okay, so 4 people are going to be living there.
Yeah.
And okay, 1600. What do you think you could rent that for market rent if you put it out there just as a regular long-term rental advertised on Zillow?
No, 15 or 1600.
Okay, so you're getting market rent.
So for the halfway house, is that what you're asking?
Yes. I guess where I'm going with this is is the juice worth the squeeze on dealing with the extra?
Maybe. So it depends on your area, right? So the juice is for number wise. So we get 2,600 for this house, right? So there's a $1,000 spread.
Yep.
And, but you're going to pay utilities in there and you're going to pay internet, but you don't have to worry about for like an Airbnb.
But you got to manage the people in there.
My partner definitely does.
I mean, but you don't have like a house manager in there.
We do.
You do.
And we'll also pair guys with that makes sense. It's kind of like a giant puzzle piece.
Oh, sounds like it's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's like an RA in a right, in a dorm or something.
Luckily, he handles all that, and I'm really going to take the maintenance side of a lot of that. So when there's issues with leaky faucet or running toilet or something like that, I'll send my guys out and we'll handle all that. But he's going to handle all the interpersonal relationship with parole and the tenant themselves.
So why not do like a program like Oxford? Like, okay, so
make more money.
Really?
Absolutely.
Because Oxford will do a 3-year lease. And Oxford's in pretty much every city, just so you guys know. So check it out. But Ken, which I've talked to in the local Oxford group, you get your earnest deposit. Mm-hmm. They do a 3-year lease that's substantially above market rent. They manage it. They property manage it. If they will cover all personal damages they cause, and anything that's caused just from wear and tear that's up to $100, they cover. And they want to stay there for life. They don't want to go anywhere. And it just has to be basic rehab done. And they give an example when I was talking to him. He's like, "Yeah, we had a dispute with a girlfriend, boyfriend. She tried to kill him. She put a hose in the egress window, flooded the basement to try to drown him. They did the whole rebuild and they had it all cleaned out within a week and told her to drive out, took care of all the costs. It wasn't on them."
I'm just stuck on the putting a hose in the bedroom window, trying to drown him. That's like
I was too.
The slowest way to kill.
It's a movie death.
Well, yeah, it's going to be obvious to anybody coming like, there's a hose stuck in the window. You know, like it's not going to be hard to figure out that there was an attempt at his life, or at least a mild inconvenience.
Right.
Because it's like, oh man, there's 2 inches of water in my room. What am I going to do? I'll just lay here until I drown. Like what kind of attempt at killing someone is that? I'm just saying.
I know, like that's beyond the point. But the point is that they did all the repairs, and it's a long-term lease, and there's no management required, and it's very hands-off. So like, why not do something like that?
So that's what my business partner, he handles all that.
Okay.
So
and he loves it.
Yeah, that's his jam.
Yeah.
And I mean, so
that's his full-time gig.
Yeah. So, and that's, for the 26, he's going to make a little bit on top of that. That's just what I pull in from that side. Then he's going to make his clip on top of that.
Okay.
And he's going to make his margin on top of that. And then we'll go from there. And one of the major reasons why I did this was because I had all these houses that are already furnished.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with them.
So with the Oxford on top of that, they'll provide all the furnishing for you, and they'll pay all utilities.
Okay, so I think what Ted's doing here is trying to get Oxford House to sponsor Rio Radio, which I will welcome.
I'm giving you a comparison.
No, I had Ted walk through a couple of my properties.
Yeah.
I had Ken walk through a couple of my properties as well. And when I broke down the math showed me that when I went this route instead of Oxford, the spread was higher.
But a lot more hands-on work.
No.
Well, yeah, because you got to manage it.
I don't manage it.
Somebody's managing it. And that's margin that your group isn't getting as a group.
No, so he's going to take his cut for managing that part of it. Then I'm going to take my cut for that part of it.
And I'm not hating on your program. We all have unique investment. I'm just giving the black and white of each version of it. I like the version where I don't have to worry about it. I have guaranteed rent.
Exactly.
And I like the fact that it's one and done if you make a mistake. And they keep their own bank account and budget per property. Each person has a duty in the house that stays there. It's a job.
It's very similar to so a lot of those systems we took, and then we just use them in this model. So when I broke it all down on the spreadsheet, I looked at utilities and I looked at internet. Then I came up with a larger spread on doing it like this as opposed to with doing it in Oxford. Because I looked at Oxford as well. Because when I went to a RIA event back last February, I think it was, and that's when I got in my mind about doing some sort of sober living places because I had all these houses. And then I just did the math on it, and the math showed me one way or the other. And
I did show them, I have a conversion fiveplex, and I had them walk through it.
Yeah.
And they're like, everything works here, but we need a big meeting room to be able to make this happen. So to make it happen, I actually had to take out some walls. And then they wanted like 3 of my kitchens taken out.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, and then if we do all this, we'll do a 3-year lease. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm making this pretty much into a big single family house.
Yeah, it's a juice worth the squeeze.
Yeah. And for me, it was not.
Yeah.
Because there's more potential the other way.
Now, you mentioned, I think, probably before we hit record, that you left your W-2 in 2023. Is that right?
Yes.
So up until 2023, what we're talking about with the sober living and halfway homes and the triplex and these things, you were working as a food and beverage manager in hospitality, correct?
So I was working the VA during that time.
Okay, VA.
And last 7 or 6 years, I was working the VA. Then in my evenings, I would go work in real estate.
Got it.
And then I did that, and I grabbed a couple of people that worked for me in the VA, and then they just transitioned over with me. One of my supervisors right now, he's been working with me for 7 years.
To break this down a little bit, do you mind sharing what you were making as when you worked for the VA? Like
$53,000 a year.
Okay, so $53K, not a huge wage.
No.
But you were accustomed to your basically lifestyle expenses that you had, and you were acquiring these rentals. What kind of financing were you getting on these? Because you mentioned you bought the first one cash, you worked out a private money deal with your mom, and you're acquiring more and more. And we're going to get into kind of like what your portfolio looks like now. How did you finance these things? How did you buy deals? Like, I mean, most people would think, I'm making $50K or around there, and it doesn't give you a lot of buying power. What did you do to like mitigate that?
Well, luckily, I had owned a house prior, so when I refinanced that one, I had a decent amount of cash.
Okay.
And then I took that cash and I moved it to my next, and then I would move into a house once a year. So I could use a 5% down, and then during that time, I'd live in that house for a year. Then I'd have to switch to a 20% for the investment properties. And then once that year popped open, I'd do it again.
Okay, so you're talking about an FHA loan, correct? So you do an
I
FHA.
also had my VA loan as well. So luckily, that helped out tremendously.
VA loans. Would you mind? We've had several veterans on the podcast, but would you mind describing what the benefit of a VA loan is and maybe the drawbacks?
Sure. So a VA loan is wonderful, and the fact that you don't have to put anything down. So
0%
down, zero private homeowners insurance. So that is great.
And there's an escape clause. Typically, if you're looking to buy a property, you can get out of a contract almost for any reason.
Yeah. So that's really good. They're a little bit more tough on inspections. So as I was progressing, I bought a fourplex in for 27th and Center. And I don't know if it would pass a VA inspection during currently, but this was during COVID, and they just drove by.
They're like, looks good, bro.
Yeah. So so it was right during the time of low interest rates. So I got a fourplex for 2.25 rate.
Nice. And now, when you lock that in, is that a 30-year note? There?
30 in there. Yep.
Okay. So, and rates were what, 4.5, 5 at the time?
That's what I have on my house.
That's
my personal
that
house.
is the lowest rate like you could possibly get. I think. I don't know. Maybe there's people that have lower than that. But
I think 1.9 is what I heard one time.
Yeah,
that is insane. That's almost free.
So so it was free. They handed me $3,000 on closing.
Wow.
So it was it was great. I big fan.
So VA loan and then FHA loans after that. Did you at one point? I think you mentioned that you got into commercial financing at some point.
So that's my 2025. Me and a couple of my other business partners, we have currently 2 multiplexes, a 16 and a 20plex that are under contract. And we got a third commercial building downtown. So luckily, after 6 years of real estate, I have equity.
Yeah. Okay. So is your equity live, or is it tied up to properties? Like, could somebody look at your PFS right now and you're like, I have this much cash in my bank account, or is it all it's all locked?
Well, it's currently tied to properties, but I'll just find it. I have a couple of my properties that are all paid off. So my second mortgage, I paid off in, I think, 4 years.
Okay. Wow.
So it was one of those things where you bought it super low.
Kind of doing the Dave Ramsey type of.
I just
the snowball effect.
Yeah. So, all that cash flow, what I wasn't using to grow my portfolio, because I stopped for a second, I just took that and just paid off a mortgage.
And you had that fire, and then you just play that to another one?
Yep.
So
the fire helped out, and I bought a duplex in Benson. I worked the wholesaler, bought it for $90,000, and
in Benson,
so about 60th and Maple. Yeah. So
I have a client, and I was so impressed when I started working with him, because he only bought West Omaha, very large houses, but he always bought the crappiest house in each neighborhood, right? So he did big renos. And he's like, when it comes to looking at the portfolio, he didn't look at each individual property's rent for the most part. And he looked at his portfolio rent as one. And so at the end of every year, he put all of his profits into this checking account, the business checking account. And then he'd always pay off the lowest property with all the profits in December of every year. And he kept on snowballing it down.
So he'd pay an extra principal payment. He'd chunk away at the lowest balance loan that he had, is what you're describing.
Yeah, he took everything he had in the account at the end of each year and paid off the lowest balance.
Okay.
And then it's been a couple years since we talked about his portfolio, but I've been trying to get him on here to talk about this. But now he's probably 7 years into this program. And I would have to venture to say at the last time we talked, he probably had more than half his portfolio paid off. And he's like, I don't care about getting the highest rents. He goes, I actually go lower in rent so I can get more applications, find the perfect tenant that wants to stay forever. And I don't up my rents because he does this program. And then he goes, then I don't have the turns. The point here is I feel like when you do what you do, when you're paying off the properties, that it takes a lot of that stress off, and you can worry more about the tenant, keeping them long term and not turning it. And you can focus more on the portfolio itself instead of the individual properties.
Exactly.
Which it's got to be so much weight off the shoulders in general.
Yeah, it's when you do it like that. And that's one of the reasons when we were speaking about halfway houses and things like that, that's why I shifted to a manager to manage those part of it. And just because as you progress in real estate, you understand that time is your biggest asset. Mm-hmm. And trying to buy back your time is extremely important. So you have more focus to buy bigger opportunities.
Jeff, I don't want to glaze over the fact that you mentioned that downtown property because I don't think any of us, I know I don't, but I know, Owen, you don't have any downtown properties. Getting downtown properties is not an easy process, and it's a big undertaking. That's big dollar amounts. Can you tell us a little bit about that, a little more about that property you mentioned?
Yeah, so it's a larger commercial building. You're going to have
like how large?
There's 20 office building or 20 office spaces in there. You can have 22 parking slots, and then there's a large event center in the middle of it.
Event center. What are you going to do with that?
I'm going to probably either take it for weddings, and so my background is
I want to walk it.
Yeah, by all means. So my background is in food and beverage.
Yeah.
So I worked at the Deco downtown for a while. So a lot of these places downtown, they're going to need to do meetings, and not just meetings, but like social events after they get done with their day for whatever reason, for ConAgra or for Kiewit or something. So they'll just send them to us. They'll send people to places to have drinks and hors d'oeuvres and stuff like that. So we're looking at right now is using that main space for things like that. The ceiling in this place is probably 40 or 50 foot tall. Wow. So it has its architecture is beautiful. I'll show you guys pictures after the.
How do you get this?
Networking. I had a buddy that was like, "Hey, I want you in this." So about a year.
So it's a whole new partnership.
Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, I quit my day job. And so
at the VA.
Yeah, I quit my day job at the VA. And during that time, I started doing helping friends doing remodels and stuff like that. So I helped a couple of buddies do remodels in their houses. Shout out to Omaha Bagels. Helped a buddy of mine do I remodeled one of his rentals. Or he bought a rental and I remodeled it for him. So we did that. And as I progressed, I did another remodel for my brother. And then I was like, this isn't that too bad. So me and one of my business partners, Justin, we spoke about it and we got our general contracting license. So we were like, all right, great. We can start pulling permits. And, we did some egresses and things like that. And so then I was like, all right, I know how to do these. Like last 6 years, I know how to do everything now. So we started building our portfolio like that. And just as another arm of investing.
This is a huge arm though. Like this isn't like some small undertaking. You're taking over a whole commercial space and banquet center and apartments on top, right?
Yeah.
Like, what was the price tag on this building?
So for just so they want 3.92 for all the spaces, but we negotiated it. So there's 2 spaces under that is like a bakery, and then there's a bar, and there's another space there as well. And there's a whole, it's an old building, so there's a giant basement as well, and it's storage units and all that that can be under
crazy tunnels.
All those crazy tunnels that are under downtown, right?
I remember my mom and my grandma actually told me they used to walk the tunnels to get from place to place down there back in the
Well, you and I were talking before we hit record about the time we looked at a building right across the street from the one Jeff's talking about, and they had interconnected tunnel system under the downtown Omaha area below the street level. Dude, we went down there just to look at it, and but I saw videos, and there's so much like asbestos and like all kinds of environmental stuff down there that they don't want people down. But it was like Stranger Things. It was like the portal scene on Stranger Things. You go down and there's like, it looks like snow is slowly falling down, but it's literally just cancer causing carcinogens that you can inhale, So yeah, it was crazy.
I still wanted to walk it.
And the thing is, when you look at most larger metropolitan areas, typically the downtown areas got developed first. That's why it's downtown. Like people were there. It's generally by a river because of, boats and shipping and bringing materials in and things like that. It just made it a lot easier back in the early 1900s. So you see a lot of around the United States, early 1900s downtowns, and then everything develops wherever there's not a natural boundary, like a river.
Yeah.
And so like there's downtown, then midtown is usually about, 20, 30 years after that, maybe 40 years. And then you have your suburbs that start developing later on, right? So when you look at the infrastructure of those areas, a lot of times they do have downtown interconnected tunnel systems because weather in the Midwest where we live is brutal during the wintertime. So they have to be able to safely have people, travel back and forth between the buildings if they needed to.
Kind of like Minnesota, and they have the above ground.
They have a skyway or the platforms and tunnels. And So this is kind of a baller move, man. Like 3.9 million. We talked a lot about your initial foray into real estate investing with halfway houses, single families, smaller multis, and then now you're buying this. Why did you even look into office? Like, this is kind of, the black eye of real estate assets here in the last, since COVID.
So full transparency, it's not just me. I'm going to be investing with a couple other guys.
Got it.
So
Okay.
I'm doing fine, but I'm not doing that well.
Yep.
So they brought me in because I know how to do construction now, and then I can invest with it as well. So I'm useful, and that's, as you grow in real estate, that's your biggest thing, is you just need to become useful to other people.
Are there 2 other people in this? So it's
There's
you and
3.
Okay, so you and 3 other guys that you're friends with.
Correct.
Your value add to this whole project or purchase is going to be the construction component.
Correct.
Do you also have to put money into this deal?
Sure do.
Okay. Is it the same amount as everyone else has to put in, or do they discount that for your skills?
No. So we're looking at all of our skill sets. So then who's ever going to
Be more hands-on.
more hands-on, I'm going to take I'm going to put in probably a similar amount of money that everyone else, but my ownership percentage will be just a little bit higher.
Okay. So you're getting more equity versus the out-of-pocket contribution that you're going to get. It's going to be equal for out-of-pocket, but you're getting more equity because of the work you're doing.
Yes, that's the reason I got brought into it. And then the other thing is I have the equity too.
Okay, this is great. So a 4-person partnership. If you don't mind, let's dig into this a little bit. And how are you guys financing this deal? So it's under contract, realizing you haven't closed on it yet.
We are financing it through the bank.
Okay.
We have 6 months due diligence.
6 months.
6 months.
Dang.
It's an old building, right?
Okay.
So I want to uncover all the FHA because there's condos on top of it.
Yep.
So you're going to figure out all of these things, and then I need to understand, like, if we have an event center down in the main lobby for weddings, things like that, how loud is it going to be for the people upstairs?
This is a one-off question here, but do you find that if you have 6 months of due diligence, you wait until the very last month to do all of it? Because, like, when you set a deadline, that's your key to when you're going to get stuff done. Or are you making good progress on the DD items?
So we're going to, most likely, we're going to, the first couple of months or so, you're really excited about it, and you're going to do a lot. And then
you're like, we have time. We'll worry about that later.
Forget about it, and then you're going to kind of do parts of it. And then that last month, I assume, is going to be a dead sprint of just figuring the rest out about it. But yeah, we got quotes. There's a lot of pillars in there. It's very beautiful structure. So we're going to have to get all the quotes for certain things, and then there's an elevator in there.
Yep.
So I don't know how to fix an elevator, so I got to get a guy out to fix an elevator.
Offline, I'll tell you who not to hire for elevator repair work.
Love that.
Owen's had a lot of.
If you want to know what
lately.
I'm talking about, listen to last week's real estate rundown, and I'll tell you.
Rather, there's an escalator and an elevator.
Okay.
So the elevators do work. The escalator does not work.
I don't have an escalator
guy.
I don't.
Amazing.
Sorry.
So that's all in the works right now. And then,
But if you have one, go ahead and hit Jeff up.
Please.
He'll drop his credentials in the end.
Please.
All right, Jeff. What about the other 3 guys? Like, what are they bringing to the table? So you're the construction guy. You're putting in basically the same money. You're going to shade more equity. I don't know how much, but we don't have to get into that. But what are they all bringing to the table for other aspects of this?
One's a commercial broker.
Okay.
So he found the deal, and then he's working a lot more. One of them's, I think he's probably going to put in a little bit of money.
Okay.
And he has some properties, and then the third one is more of a finance guy.
Okay. So we have the guy that found the deal.
Yep.
Let's see. So you're the construction guy. We have the guy that found it. We have 2 other guys that did what in that? I'm sorry.
One of them brought me in. I do CrossFit. I don't know if you guys know about CrossFit. If you do it, you make sure everyone else knows. So
like vegans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
or cold plunging.
Yeah,
Exactly.
vegans, CrossFit, and cold plunging.
So,
you will never wonder who is involved in that because they will let you know right away.
So one of my buddies, he's into multifamilies as well. And then he was like, "You want to do this? You're pretty good at construction. I see all what you're doing." And he brought me in on there, and then that's kind of we went for that. And and he's really good at the finance side of it all.
Okay,
so he's gonna do all the legwork for the bank and things like that.
Okay, all right. Apologies for asking this in advance because I've been involved in some of these types of partnerships. You have a finance guy, the kind of like, I'll work with the banks and get it all placed and everything, and then you guys own it.
Yeah.
And then what's that guy doing after that?
Well, I mean, I'm going to charge for my labor. And
Got
things
it.
Like that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So like I'm going to do the job, but I'm not going to do the job for free.
Yep.
So
makes sense.
We're just going to charge it to the business.
Okay. All right. So this makes sense.
But what you're asking is, what's the finance guy's role after the close?
Yeah. Like he did
he's
some work to get the loan
He's put in
placed.
money too.
Okay.
He'll be an investor in it as well.
Got it. All right. JVs are always interesting because everybody has generally a different, responsibility and like their piece in the thing. And I do want to highlight out of this, the guy that found the deal is probably going to be the guy that does the least amount of work after you own it. And that is something as a key takeaway here, because I've been involved as the guy that found the deal before, and they're sweet.
Yeah.
Like if you can find a deal, that's a huge thing, because nothing else after that would happen unless you had found it. But then you found the deal, and that's your accounts receivable, right?
Yeah,
or whatever in it. So I always like to dig into these JVs because everybody's got a different role, and it widely varies. Okay, so office building downtown Omaha. Why did you choose that particular asset class, or why did your partner think that was a good idea? In that office has been kind of the black sheep of the general real estate asset class overall in the last 4 years.
So it's horribly under-rented.
Okay.
And there's plenty of vacancy. We're doing all this remodeling downtown. It's pretty close to what was the library downtown. So they're going to need a lot of office space. There's plenty of law firms that they don't have space yet. They're going to need to go walk to the courthouse plenty.
Well, and you got one of the biggest buildings in a 4-state area being built across the street from you.
Exactly.
You have a whole new city center that's been built. You have billions and billions of dollars getting invested into the downtown Omaha scene. And comparative to us of other cities, we actually still have a need for commercial space. Yeah.
We're looking at what's that, where you kind of Airbnb office spaces where you can rent it for a certain amount of time. And then they
kind of like a co-working.
Yeah. So we're looking into that as well. I think that'll be great. I think it'll be fine though. So I'm pretty excited about it.
I think the co-working model is awesome. There's also a place downtown. It's in the O'Keefe Elevator Company, and they actually do the shared spaces like that. And then they have the conference centers and everything's available. But then with that particular one, every co-working office comes with a warehouse space in their main warehouse in the bottom two basements.
Yeah.
So you get a shipping area included with your office space.
Pretty sweet. Now I have a note here. You have 2 apartment buildings under contract. Is that correct?
I do.
Okay. What are those like?
So those are fine. Those are great. I learned how to do all those, and because when you're starting to get into large multifamily, there's a huge amount of capital you need to go in there. So I read a book by Pace Morby. And so I started doing these learning about creative financing, owner financing, things like that. And so I reached out to both the owners, and they were both open to it.
How did you get a hold of them?
One was from a friend of mine that her dad was selling a place. And then the other, I knocked on the door. I just walked in front of it, and the gentleman who's in his 80s, no kids, came over and said, "Hey, what you guys doing?" And we're like, "We're looking at the place." He's like, "I own it." And I'm like, "Hey, we want to buy it." And that's we started talking.
How many units are these?
So it's going to be a 20-plex and a 16.
Yeah, I have a 4-plex listed, and I get maybe 10 to 20 phone calls a month on this one. And it's been up for a couple months now. And it's always somebody wanting to do a subject to or take it over. And I'm like, hey, just so you know, bank is not okay with this. And on top of that, the owner of this property is good friends with the vice president of the bank, so he's not willing to go behind the back. And I keep on getting these calls and offers. So they're obviously making tons of calls. So I'm guessing that both of these owners have getting these calls weekly.
These aren't subject twos. A lot of I've done a couple subject twos with residential single families, and those are great. But for these, they're more of owner financing. They're more of like, certain amount down, and then I'm going to balloon payment in 3 to 5 years. That's kind of how we're structuring these. And then we're just really ironing out the rest of these details for them all. But they're looking both pretty promising.
Okay, 16 and 20 units. What are the price tags on these bad boys?
1.4 and 1.4.
Okay, so the 16, I would assume, is in either a better location or it's in better condition.
It's in Dundee.
Okay, and the 20 is where?
Midtown, in Blackstone.
Wow. Yeah, those are good assets. At 1.4. Yeah, okay. All right, so we got $70K a unit for the 20 unit.
About 87 for the 16.
And how do the numbers pencil out? Are you going to be able to cash flow? Do you think
No.
No?
No, not really. We're going to. I'm gonna.
I wasn't expecting that.
I'm going to take it for a couple of years, where I'm going to maybe make $1,000 a month for 3 to 5 years. Then after 3 to 5 years, when we put it all in the spreadsheet, it's looking a lot more promising. But to get into these larger multifamily, especially with such a low down payment, it's just what it is. Like I don't have the money for it, but I figured out how to do it.
Mhm.
So you're going to work a lot. I'll manage the properties. We'll charge.
But as you redo each unit, you're putting value back in the property. You're adding value to it. You're going to raise the rents, and then within 3 years, you're going to probably go refinance it. The rates will, or wait, you're waiting for the rates to go down, is what I should say. The rates go down, you go refinance it. You probably can be able to pull some money out of it and finish the remodel and come out really ahead and have an asset that you never would have been able to get initially.
That's exactly how I look at it. Hopefully it's all going to work out great. The numbers show that it probably will.
Let's devil's advocate this for a second, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Okay, so fast forward to a time when you feel that right now, knowing what you know, you think, I'm just going to refinance this, pull some equity out, rinse and repeat. What if the tariffs that are being implemented right now in the wildly volatile economic market that we're looking at ends up being massive inflation? And to quell inflation, the Fed decides they're going to basically raise interest rates like they did in 2021, 22, 23. What then? Like, what if you can't refi out at a favorable rate where it's going to, give you some cash flow that's positive?
Well, then I'll hold it until it does.
Okay. Do you think you can eat the monthly? Okay, so you'll figure out a way.
It's going to cash flow maybe $1,000 a month in each place. Or I'm going to lose a little bit in the short term, but if you look at a year and your span of your lives,
it's a write-off too.
What's a year? Exactly, it's a write-off. When I'm old and I'll have these 2 nice apartment complexes that are in Blackstone, which is going to be right by the tram. That's going to be there. The electric.
That's going to be game changer.
That's going to be huge. And then, and it's going to be right by parole too. So we're hoping to offer it to people that are just getting out of prison that need places.
Jeff, are you married? I forgot to ask you that.
Single.
Okay. So, when you left your job, what comfort did you have, or were you freaking out when you left your job because you're like, I need to pay the bills?
Yeah.
Right. And
Absolutely.
how is that translated to now? Has that worry lessened some, or are you still kind of like, how long am I good for before I have to start really kind of like worrying about this? And I'm asking this because like Ted and I have talked over the years, like there's seasons in real estate, right? And like sometimes you're like, yeah, man, I'm just making it rain and there's like all this cash available. And then other times it's like, I may need to like sell or refinance something or whatever, because you get, as a real estate investor, a lot of us bank all of our equity and they're tied up in properties. And it's not like you can go to the bank and just be like, hey, I need to go to Sam's Club and, get groceries. Can I?
Because I'm asset rich and cash poor.
Asset rich, cash poor. Like how does that, maybe you could talk about that aspect.
Yeah. So I have a nice nest egg. And I only withdraw it when I need to. I live pretty frugally.
Mm-hmm. But you have paid off properties, so you're also making more money off of than the average investor is off your investments.
So, when you start paying off your properties, then you don't have to pay your principal and your interest. Like, the cash flow is pretty decent.
It's so funny because a lot of people we have on the podcast and a lot of people that you see in general on podcasts are kind of like buy. Like my whole thing is acquisitions, right? And it's a whole different world, because generally you can take acquisition fees, you can make money off of wholesaling, flipping, those types of active real estate activities. Are you doing any of those also?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we'll do the general contracting thing. So we're always like, I have a crew of guys that work for me. And then when we're not working on our stuff, we are also finding other jobs to do for other people.
Okay. So you're able to supplement your active income, your like how I pay the bills stuff with doing remodeling work for either investors or homeowners or whatever, right?
So we're always doing at least one remodeling job, and we are working on our own properties as well.
This is what I love about real estate in general, is because there's so many different ways to make money along the way, and you can just slightly pivot and you're probably going to fall ass backwards into people or opportunities that offer you the chance to basically make up your cash flow that you were used to getting from your W-2. right?
Yeah.
So I do love that. So creativity is the mother of invention, or that's not the right proverb, but
So once I quit my day job, I was a little concerned, and then I found my salary essentially again in probably like 2 months, and then
Jeez.
and I was like, oh great, I don't need to worry about this no more, and then I just kept on growing.
So I wrote down while you were like over the last several minutes, you were describing a lot of things, and I wrote down frugal because you get into a tendency as a real estate investor as you start acquiring more and more deals, which you are, and bigger deals, to have lifestyle creep where you have more money, so therefore you buy more things, or you get a bigger house or a bigger car, or like Ted, or generally you add liabilities to your balance sheet. And it doesn't sound like you've done much of that. So, kudos to you for managing your budget frugally. But like now, timestamp this right now. You have 15 units that you own.
Correct.
And then you also have a whole bunch of stuff under contract.
So I have 15 houses, and I have probably like 24 doors personally.
Okay.
And then I help other people manage as well. So I also help a couple other people manage their places as well. And then I'll help them with managing their Airbnbs. And then my brother and me
for a fee.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So then those people, once you start doing things for them, they are just going to be like, oh, he's doing a great job. Can you also remodel a house for me? Can you also, it just opens up more doors.
Would you like fries with that?
Exactly. Yeah. So then you just learn to do more. And then as you progress, you just learn, you learn the upsell. You see, oh, you need whatever else in your house. And you just start doing that as well. And it's going pretty decent.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff.
Sure.
This is fascinating. Like you have progressed really quickly to making big moves that a lot of people don't do.
It's inspiring, man.
It really is because, I do want to highlight that a lot of folks that get into real estate investing stay in their lane and they buy what they know, and they don't generally venture out into partnerships. They stay within, maybe it's single family, maybe it's multifamily, or whatever asset class it is. But you're doing major moves to level up into your holdings, and you're partnering with, it sounds like, the right people that each have different responsibilities. Like, is there a grand plan here, or are you kind of like, I'm going to take opportunities as they come and just tackle them, whenever they come up?
So that's something I'm kind of learning about. Is I'm learning to say no quite a bit more for smaller opportunities that are just going to become time voids, or that just aren't worth your time. Because as you start really progressing more, time becomes the biggest issue. So right now I'm starting to learn to say no on smaller deals, looking for larger deals as we go. But I think after 2025, I'm probably going to put another 40 doors in my portfolio. And then I'm going to take a year and then
take a breath.
Well, just learn about those 40 doors that I just expanded on. And because your systems are built for a smaller system. And when you expand your system, like, you know a lot about things theoretically, and then actually experiencing them and figuring it out as you go. And you can talk to everyone about these things, but me personally, I just have to do it. So I'm going to do it. And so I'll probably take a year, pay off some debt that I accumulated during that time, and then just wait until another big deal comes. And then that's it.
Do you find that it isn't going to be necessarily learning what you have, but learning who you are at that point?
I agree with that.
Because right now you have all these hats on, as Owen said. Like, you're the property manager, you're these partners, and you're doing all this different stuff. But I think that by adding these to your portfolio, you yourself is going to be a different person.
I agree.
And you're going to have to reevaluate: am I a property manager? Am I a contractor? Am I this, or this? And by doing what you're going to do right in 2025, I think it's going to force you to decide that where's my lane and where am I going, and which hats do I need to remove to be able to make sure I focus on my forward growth.
100%. That's exactly how I see it as well. And that's why I want to take some time for the probably 2026, where I'm not going to, if something falls in my lap, that's something I can't turn down. Sure. But
of course,
but for the most part,
we're investors. That's the hardest part, isn't it?
That's
the part that drives my wife nuts.
Right. So I just had another subject to deal that literally fell in my lap last night for someone needing quick cash, and then just me helping them out. So stuff like that, where it'd be maybe an easy flip, but majority of it all, I'm just going to sit, hold, really refine my systems, and try to buy back my time quite a bit.
I like that word.
I
like that phrase. Buy back my time.
This is very personal for me, but I was having a conversation with my wife. Actually, this was, I think, early this week, and she was able to retire from her job about 5 years ago, right around the same time I left mine in 2017, so it's been about 8 years. Not long after she retired, and she's phenomenal, like mom, and like manages the household. She's just like a badass when it comes to like just getting stuff done. And like I'm the sole provider now, so there's a lot of pressure with that, and a lot of just you have to be on your game. You're responsible for your whole household, and obviously with being the only breadwinner in the house, no shade to her about that, obviously, but there's challenges with that, because it's like, with real estate investing, there's a lot of ins and outs for cash, right? I mean, you may have a situation where you have like, oh, somebody moved out and they like the place is trashed. All of a sudden you have to come out of pocket for 20 grand, just like pull it out of your ass. And you may have a whole bunch of those that happen all at once, or you may have a capital call, or you may have a deal that comes up, or you need like money. So it's so hard to plan. It's not like you're working a W-2 and you know what your expenses are, and like, hey, let's plan for this vacation, or let's plan for this, new house that we're going to buy. Right. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, how are you doing on cash for household expenses and just like, whatever you need? And she's like, I think I'm good. Cause generally I'll be like, here, like, the household expense account will fund that, or I'll fund that. And then, bills get paid and so forth. And then, vacations and all that stuff comes up, kids stuff. And she goes, how are you doing? And I was like, I get so caught up in the day to day that it's just like, oh, I'm busy and I'm doing all these things. And like, I had to take a step back for a second and appreciate the spouses and partners of people that are in real estate investing, because it has to be really hard. Because a lot of times, and I'm speaking from my perspective, but I think this applies to a lot of investors, especially men, will hide a lot of the struggles that we go through and a lot of the risks and opportunities and like all the day-to-day, right, that we deal with all the time. And it's hard because, like you said, you had an opportunity fall in your lap for a subject to deal, and those things, not specifically what you're talking about, but like opportunities come all the time and you weren't planning on it, right? You're like, hey, snapshot in time right now, Friday, March 7th, I'm good. Like things are great. I have X number of dollars in the account. I know that we're taken care of for the family stuff. And then all of a sudden something comes up, whether it's a bad thing or an opportunity. And then you're like, hey, I know we talked about this last week, but things have really changed. And all of a sudden you need to have, a couple $100,000 going out the door. That is really hard to deal with. So I don't know where I'm going with all this, but I just want to acknowledge the fact that it's seasons in real estate and the fact that it can change wildly from one thing to the next. And the amount of risk we take and the day-to-day lives that we live, a lot of people just cannot relate to at all. And, I have conversations with friends that are, maybe just in the traditional path and they're working W-2 jobs and they're like, I can't talk to them because they don't understand what you're going through. You know what I mean? It's like,
I do.
They just glaze over and they're like, I don't know what that's like.
I can 100% relate to this right now because I just got out of a rough partnership where a significant amount of money was lost in this partnership. And then it was just the other day, my wife wanted to do something, remodel the next bathroom that we're remodeling. And I'm like, that's got to pause right now. And whenever I say paused, it's like red flag. and then I had to have that conversation and, I'm like, hey, well, I had to do this, and this, and, I'm working on it. We'll get through it. And then, she bought something up and generally she doesn't want to be part of the business. And she said something along the lines of, she's like, my name's on this too. And if you die, I need to know what loans are going on, what's going on here, what's going on this. And I do document all that into a sheet. So if it does ever happen, but I'm like, hey, you don't want to be part of the business. So I don't include you in all this stuff. I just try to make sure the house count has the money it needs to have. Right.
Yeah.
But it is the same situation. It was just like months ago, everything was flush and pretty damn good. Like we felt okay. There was nothing to worry about. But I'm sitting here and I highlighted the fact he wrote men hide struggles.
Yeah.
And I hid that. Wasn't purposely hiding. I just didn't bring it up. And she's like, I don't appreciate that. This is our business. And I'm like, I'm always taking loans or moving properties or doing something. I don't include you in any of it. I also don't need your signature on any of it.
Yeah.
So I just do my thing. And it's stressful for the other parties in your family.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because they don't know where you're at.
Yeah.
Right. And I had to really take a step back at that point and say, I feel really bad now, honestly, because like my job is to provide, and I don't want to inundate her with information about the business that she doesn't want to hear. Right. And to your point, Ted, like my wife isn't involved in the day to day in my business, so I don't tell her everything that's going on. And like, I don't want to bring up all the time, like what's stressing me out today, because it's literally something different every day. Or maybe it's something I'm carrying over from week to week that's a really heavy anchor on you, right? And it's like a decision you have to make or like a move you have to make, and it sucks. And you don't want to bring it up because you don't want to worry the other person as much as you're worried.
You don't want them to question.
Yeah, you want to absorb.
But you don't want you want to seem confident. You don't want them to question who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, but I think what the end result is, like if you do that too much, then they assume things that are happening or not happening that like maybe is not really the case. I don't know. I just wanted to call that out
Jessica, but why is there so much hair in the shower? Is there some stuff going on?
Oh, because your hair's falling out because of stress.
Yes.
Yeah. You have a bunch of Airbnbs, right?
Yeah.
January sucks.
I mean,
January sucks.
I mainly do midterms.
Still, I mean, for me, I have quite a few midterms. January sucks.
Mhm.
Like I lost.
August is usually my worst month.
So for right after Christmas for me is when a lot of my midterms just dry up, and then now everything's fine. But I know I plan for January for me to have quite a bit of vacancy, and then I make it all up the other 11 months. But
Yeah,
it's just something you have to plan for, and like that's just a part of it.
See,
now.
January is not my worst
Really?
month. My worst month every year is August.
Good for you.
My August is my January. I'm almost vacant on all my properties. I feel like every August.
weird. Well, I think this might be a good time to talk about something that didn't go perfectly for you, since we're harping on this stuff. We have a section that we call
Failing Forward.
This Failing Forward is brought to you by Magic Door.
Magic Door is the AI-powered property management platform designed to handle everything from the rent cycle to the vacancy and maintenance cycles. During the rent cycle, Magic Door collects rent, sends automatic reminders, deducts management fees, and distributes payments to owners. In the vacancy cycle, Magic Door streamlines listings, tenant applications, seamless multi-language communication, screening tenants, and converting applications into leases with one click. And for the maintenance cycle, Magic Door's AI handles everything, asking tenants key questions, assigning tasks to vendors, and scheduling repairs automatically without you getting involved. With no hidden fees, no onboarding costs, and seamless AI-powered automation, Magic Door takes care of the entire property management lifecycle so you can focus on what matters most.
You get the gist. It's something that happened in your life or business, didn't go according to plan, something you learned along the way. Got anything like that?
Yeah. So back last year, I did a remodel and I quit my job, and so I didn't know how to structure it yet, and I had a lot of people that owed me money, and I
Owed you money for projects or
projects, back rent, all the things where you're trying to be forgiving, you're trying to work with people when they owe you 3 months back rent, and you take that times 3 or 4, it becomes a lot of money. And so, I mean, I got kind of where you guys were saying of a lot of money stresses, and then I would wake up in the middle of the night just full of anxiety, and then luckily all the systems I were waiting for finally greenlit. All that money got all paid back. I had a house burned down, and that and that it really just fixed everything. But it really taught me a lot about not overextending myself, and to just know my numbers, because growth is expensive, and as you keep on growing, you can start making some of it up, but growth is expensive. So I learned that I needed to have larger reserves during that time. And I learned that everything's going to be all right. And real estate's very forgiving, but I had to take some time and figure everything out, and then charge more in my contracting as well.
you guys are both at a higher level than I'm at with your portfolios. Do you guys have a standard that you feel like you need to keep as a cash cushion for the size of your portfolios? And how do you guys determine what the amount is?
Well, I'll take this. So, yeah, I mean, I look at my portfolio, how I feel like that I'm okay and I can withstand some punches. I got to have at least a couple, like it's into the six figures above that, like couple six figures. And that's generally, I can withstand some punches. So if I have a capital call for like a major repair, an elevator goes down, something like that, where I'm going to have to come out of pocket that I can't do an insurance claim on, or maybe there's a deal that comes up that I need to put money into. Generally, that's my buffer, but I also want to backstop that with a line of credit where I have like a significant amount of tap intoable equity.
That's smart.
Yeah, so that I don't need to necessarily keep all the cash. I have to have the availability of cash at a moment's notice. So that's my peace of mind, is having lines of credit available that I can draw off of in case of emergencies, in addition to having a safety net of the cash availability.
That's similar to I have a line of credit, then I have a nest egg of cash in case I need to jump into it.
Yeah.
So when I was getting into investing, and I remember reading books, listening to podcasts, and the number that I was keep on hearing when I was getting, like, my first property I bought in 2008, but that wasn't like an investment. It was more taking care of a family member. And so 2019, I bought my first actual, rental flip. And at that point, I was like, okay, when I did my Burr method on it, I'm like, I'm going to keep 6 months. If this property had an issue and I couldn't pay, I put 6 months of that into a savings account. Mm-hmm. And then my next two properties I got after that, I did the same thing. And that has, gone to the wayside by a significant amount recently. But I always tried to always have that 6 month buffer for each property in general. That was kind of like the figure I had in my head. But I didn't know if you guys had something that you based it on, the amount of units you had, or, value of properties or whatnot.
So I didn't do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept growing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally realized that I should have done something, maybe not 6 months, maybe probably now it's 3, but I didn't do any of that. I just kept growing and growing and growing and just hoped everything would work out. And it did for a while, until it didn't. Then I had to figure it out and really learn more about my numbers.
So mine were condemns.
Yeah.
And so I was doing pretty much new construction, as Owen says, on these properties. So there wasn't much overhead cash wise. It was more like just a turn or something I had to come, or just lack of rent. So that's really all I had to worry about. And I think it's a little different when you're buying stuff that's $28,000. You're not doing a lot of work to it because anything could happen.
Yeah. I did that once.
Yeah. But I'm just giving that as an example.
All right, Jeff, we're going to get into the OT with Owen and Ted.
You're going to get OT with Owen and Ted, presented by PropStream.
PropStream is one of the most trusted real estate data software solutions. PropStream benefits all real estate professionals. You can find properties and contact homeowners on the go with PropStream's mobile app. We offer free academy courses tailored to real estate investors and agents. Take advantage of our live webinar demos to learn the software and scale your real estate business. Visit www.propstream.com and sign up for your 7-day free trial to get more leads and grow your business.
And fire some questions at you, buddy. Here we go. We've got 5 of these bad boys, maybe 6. Who knows? We're going to mix it up a little bit.
Love it.
We ask these to almost every guest. And the first question for you is, your book, when it's coming out, what are you going to write it about? And what's the title going to be? Or one or the other?
My book would be just do it, like Nike. You'll figure it out as you go. Just jump in. Just keep going, and then you're going to make mistakes.
I like
along the
just
way.
Jump in.
I
think that's the title.
I think the copyright for the first one might be an issue, but just jump in.
Well, I'm pretty sure "Just Do It" might be copyrighted.
Yeah, that might get me in a little trouble.
Don't dip in your toe.
Yeah, just go. Just because you're gonna screw up, and you're gonna just do it.
Get the first one and move forward, right?
Get the first 5 in, and then move forward. And that's what I did. And then you're gonna screw up. You're gonna do a lot of things that you shouldn't do, and you can read about it or you can live it, and living about it makes better stories.
Love it.
It's the Hansen podcast, not in shorter hair than the Hansen brothers, but you can interview anyone in the world today that's preferably alive. Mm-hmm. Who's it going to be? And it doesn't have to be real estate related. Sure. What's the one question you would love to ask?
I would interview Alex Hermosi.
Okay.
Big fan of him and his wife.
So is this guy.
Yeah, huge fan of the guy. I'd probably the main question I would ask is how to scale from like a micro level as opposed to, like do this. So really just break down all of the day-to-day maybe not day-to-day, week-to-week operation or something like that, of really trying to grow to get to that level and also be just jacked while you're doing it.
We got to get him on the podcast.
Oh man, that would be epic. He's
We've had Brandon Turner and Pace Morby. Why can't we get Alex?
We might.
Yeah.
He, by the way, like I give you a hard time about. Oh, you have your shoes on today. But by the way, for anybody listening to this, Ted takes his shoes off during the podcast.
Almost every time.
Super gross and weird. And I want your votes on this. I'm going to create. I think I'll create a vote on Facebook here on how gross this is and see what everybody else says, because he doesn't believe me when I tell him.
It's first thing in the morning. My
disgusting
socks are
it is.
clean. So
No. But anyway, Alex Hermosi is notorious for wearing breathe right strips, a wife beater, and gym shorts, and probably Crocs.
Yep.
I don't know, but Ted, I can picture you wearing Crocs in here with your lack of sanitary feet. Like
what's
social etiquette.
what's the breathe right strips do for a daily life?
Just helps them
Makes you breathe better?
Yeah.
He just wears them.
Yeah. Like unashamedly, like all day long. Like he's on all kinds of videos.
Yeah, I've seen it.
with breathe right
I
strips.
thought it was just a cool thing he did.
No, it's not cool for anyone.
I think he had a deviated septum.
He might be the only person alive that actually wears them around during the day.
You always see, I more and more I see women wearing them, and it's almost like a jewel thing.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I have not. That's nope. Hard pass. I do not like that at all. All right. So next question for you. It's the end of the road for you, Mr. Hansen. Who would you choose to deliver your eulogy, and what do you hope they were going to say about you?
Probably my best friend Frank. We've been best friends for 20 some years. We're godfathers to each other's kids. He's in real estate now as well. So, iron sharpens iron. So we always talk about construction and things like that. And when I was deployed, he was also deployed in a different unit. So it was cool. So we got to see each other while we were deployed in Iraq. He'd say that I'm a hardworking guy that probably is too risk orientated. And that's just how you grow.
If you could speak directly to the most impactful person in your life, mentor of, family member, business, whatever it is, and you're speaking directly to them right now, and they're here in the room listening to you, what would you say, and how would you say thank you to them?
It'd probably be my dad. He passed in 2019. I would just be like, hope you're proud of me, Dad. I did a lot of this thinking of you. One of my LLCs is REH, and that's actually his Russell Edmund Hansen.
Yeah.
So it was after him. That's one of the reasons I did all of this, was with him in my mind. So I just tell him thank you and tell him that none of this would be possible without him, and hopefully I'm creating generational wealth for the next line of Hansens.
I love that. And you're still using his tools to this day?
I'm using some of them.
Yeah.
A lot of the batteries and whatnot don't work anymore.
You 1031 exchange some of his tools into others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely wrote them off. So
you still kind of, when you're grabbing some of those old ones, the hammer or something like that.
Yeah.
You feel like he's there swinging with you?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll talk to him while I'm working on houses and stuff like that. It's one of those things.
Cathartic.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's cool. All right. How can our listeners find you, support you? Are you a social media guy?
Yeah. So I have Hansen Property Management. That is my
HANSON?
HANSEN.
SEN.
So that is my Facebook page. Besides that, you can always just get a hold of me on hhrenovations.com. That's our email for any sort of contract that anyone needs, any sort of remodels. We would always love to help and give you all a quote. And
Love it.
Jeff, I first met you in 2010 through your brother.
Yep.
And the quick overview is your brother has a nationally syndicated DJ music show,
Scratch
and Sniff. I was a huge fan of him. When I was working in the nightlife industry, we brought him in town to do an event. He's like, "Hey, you got to meet my brother." Mm-hmm. We all went to Kansas City, did an event down in Kansas City, got to know you then. You were still serving, and it's kind of
serving drinks or serving in the military?
Military,
yeah.
Okay.
And it's kind of, it's actually one of the first times I went out of town with my now wife.
Yeah.
And we had a great time. It was great to get to know you. I've seen you go and grow. And I've caught up with you at some point every year
For sure.
since then. And to see you get into real estate, see you start coming to the REIA events, and now to see the success that you had. I knew you were doing stuff, man, but I had no idea that you've gone to this level this fast. And man, it is just amazing to see what you've done. And I think I find it personally incredibly inspirational. And it makes you look, if you're only have a couple rental units or you're doing different things, it makes you kind of reevaluate. Like, man, there is deals out there. There's things that you can make happen. Stop giving excuses. Move forward. And that's what I'm telling myself right now by after listening to your story. And it's just awesome. And I'm so proud of you.
I appreciate that.
So proud of you. So thank you so much. If you're listening to the first time or the 195th time, please give us a review on whatever format you listen to. I am checking out our Apple. We have not had a written review
Lame.
since 2024.
Pretty lame.
So I am asking you guys to get on there, give us a written review on whatever form you listen to. If it's Apple, if it's Audible, we haven't had one on there for quite a long time. I appreciate the 5 stars. We see those coming in. We have a lot of them. We have hundreds of those now. Thank you. But it means so much. We'll read them out here and give you a shout out. But with that, Owen Dashner, we see us out.
On behalf of REIA Radio, Aiden Bear, and Ted Kosh, I'm Owen Dashner. You've been listening to Jeff, the soon-to-be author of The Fire Method, Hansen.
Fire. Sign off. Jeff Hansen.
Redo that.
I thought
Those are too long.
I thought you were doing the finger because you want me to make it go
I'm
longer.
like, hurry up.
I thought you want me to stretch it out.
No, I don't like. Aiden, give me your thoughts.
Jeff, do you prefer the longer version or the shorter version?
They both are great.
I just
They both are great.
I mean, being a listener, do you think that it sounds better, going the Jeff, or do you think the Jeff? Like, what do you think?
I'd say the shorter one would be my
Thank
favorite.
you.
I hope Jory keeps all that, and so people see how negative you are towards me.
Shut up.